Okay, I'm going to look at the total pay application again, but this time we're going to look at creating variables to hold our data instead of keeping it in the properties of each text box. So to do that, we need to go ahead and declare a few variables for each piece of data that we need to hold. So I'm going to declare them locally within the procedure. So I need to dimension or declare three variables. One for pay rate, and we do dimension pay rate as we need to pick a data type. So the data type, since we're going to have decimal points, we're just going to declare that as a double. We'll create one for hours, and one for total pay. Okay, so we have our three variables. Notice as we're putting these in, you do get an underline there saying there's an error or a warning. In this case, it's just saying we haven't used that variable yet, but we will. Okay, so first thing we need to do is put a value in each one, and so the pay rate we're going to get from the pay rate text box. So txt pay rate dot text. Now we can leave it this way and the way we did it last time, where it's using this text property in a calculation. Visual Basic will try as best as it can to convert data types for us. For instance, the text property of each text box is actually a string data type, meaning it's characters. For this multiplication operation, it looks at that and says, hey, you know what, there's no multiplication defined for strings, so I should convert the text out of each, or the string data value from these two, and make them numbers so I can multiply. So we can do that. We can also set an option in Visual Basic and Visual Studio for option strict, which means don't implicitly make conversions on the fly. And so we can do explicit conversions. Okay, so one Visual Basic conversion function that's built in is all the conversion functions in VB start with C. So CDBL says convert this to double, and then we just feed in a value. Okay, so CDBL will convert the string value to a double value so that it can be put in this double variable. Okay, so the data types should match. Okay, and this way we're doing it explicitly as opposed to letting Visual Basic choose, okay, and doing it implicitly. So we need also one for hours. So our hours is going to be equal to CDBL. We'll go ahead and convert that. Actually, we could use integer for that one, right? As long as the hours come out to an even number. Just for illustrative purposes, I'm going to use integer for this one. Okay, but we could have partial hours. Okay, and so we have our hours. Then we would do our calculation. Total pay is going to be equal to pay rate times hours. Okay, and then the last thing we want to do is take total pay, the variable, okay, and convert that to a string, format it to currency, and put that back into the text box. Some of you may be wondering, well, okay, I see what variables do, I see what we're doing here. Why don't we just use it in the text box like we were doing before? You can do that. Obviously, in the last situation we did, there are some times when you have intermediate variables where you need storage that you're not necessarily displaying on the screen. So for instance, if we had like a withholding amount we wanted to calculate, but we're not necessarily going to display it, that's when we definitely need variables. So if I add in values like this, gross pay and withholding, I can calculate the gross pay using variables, calculate the withholding using variables, even though on my main screen I'm still not displaying those, and then using those to calculate the total pay and do the formatting. So even though we didn't necessarily need them in the example or some of the examples, you still will at times need to put variables inside your programs. Now note, if we declare them in the place we declared them in here, they're going to be local to this procedure. So if I add another procedure outside of this is a local variable, so you won't be able to see pay rate hours in any other procedure. Later on we'll look at how you do declare global variables by declaring variables up at the top outside the procedures. And although technically you can use the word dim as a keyword up here, we would rather use the word private. So private pay rate as double, that would make it a form level variable. Okay, kind of like a global, but not truly global, because it's just available within this class, this form class, as opposed to the whole program.